For centuries, the Catholic Church's so-called doctrine of discovery has justified colonization and the taking of indigenous lands, driving a wedge between church leaders and native people. Now the Vatican has turned away from the doctrine, going so far as to issue a formal repudiation. Indigenous people in the U.S. and Canada have been asking for this for years, and though it presents a chance for reconciliation, they say it's just a start, not a conclusion. Correspondent Antonia Gonzalez caught up with two leaders from Pueblo communities here in New Mexico to get their perspective on the role of Catholicism after the doctrine of discovery.
Joni and Derek, welcome to New Mexico in Focus.
Thanks for having us.
Derek, the Catholic Church has a presence in all 19 pueblos in New Mexico. What was that? What has been the relationship been like between the Pueblo communities and the Catholic Church historically?
You know, the coexistence of Catholicism and Pueblo religion has been one that has been basically melted into one in my experience. And historically, it's been one that my elders have also taken into and embraced in their own certain ways. So I know that in my community of Sandia Pueblo, respectively, and also Isleta Pueblo, it's that type of relationship that my elders understand it to be. We are lucky to be able to have not only just our Native American religion and the cultural aspect of that, but also be able to look to and pray to and look up to a Catholic type of religion as well. And so I think it's one that's blended itself in a way that, in my experience, in my ancestors' experience, obviously it's one of those things that, historically speaking, has been a rocky road. But in my experience with my grandparents and my parents and myself, I found it to be one that I can appreciate, to be one that I can live in as a community, as a Pueblo community.
And Joni, what about for yourself, for your community, and what's the relationship like today?
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely feel like it has been a beautiful intertwining of our culture and being able to coexist. I think that in this present day moment, there's been a call to action for truth telling that is ongoing. And as we continue to unveil all of those parts that came to be for the formulation of these various churches and missions in our communities, everybody has a lot of different perspectives on it. For me, doing this work as a leader at the National Native American Boarding School Healing Coalition, serving on the board of directors, also as a mother and a doctoral candidate, it really forces me to dig deep to understand some of those implications as they relate to the wrongful taking of land, resources, and the overall cultural impact that it's had on our communities. I feel that here, particularly in the Southwest, we've experienced Catholic colonization in a completely different shape and form. And perhaps in many ways, we're fortunate that our ancestors have sacrificed what they have to allow for that blending to happen. And as a mother, as a community cultural revitalizer, as a daughter of a devout Catholic, it's important to me to be able to merge all of those teachings together.
And Derek, to add to that, what was your thoughts or reaction when you heard the Vatican reject publicly the doctrine of discovery?
You know, when I heard the notion that it was repudiated, repudiate has a different meaning than rescinding, right? Complete rescission is to completely dissolve, so to speak, the doctrine of the papal bulls that set up the doctrine of discovery, which ironically, as someone that went to law school, that's one of the first concepts that they teach you in federal Indian law, in property law, and that was actually something that's the way I learned how property was basically extinguished from indigenous populations around the world, right? And so to repudiate that, for me, I think is a step in the right direction from the head person of the Catholic Church, but yet I think there is still a lot more that can be done, should be done, and will take a brainstorming of different individuals, indigenous populations, the Catholic Church itself, to actually become and come to a point where we can appreciate a complete rescission of these doctrines that have impacted our lives historically and live on through today.
And what does it mean to hear that from the Vatican, but to also have the Archbishop here in Santa Fe agree with what the Vatican said?
Well, I think for me, as one individual that is indigenous, that comes from one of the pueblos that obviously was impacted by the Spanish crown and the history related to that, it's one that I can appreciate, but I think that there's always more to be done. And so that being said, I know people that are watching today can say, well, what more can be done? I think there's a lot of different ideas that can be fetched out, whether it's moving with the notion of land back, water back, whether it's the notion of helping to heal the wounds of, kill the Indian, save the man, removing children from the pueblos and moving them to a school to help them to assimilate, to be more like other people. I think there's a lot of things that we can do to re-educate our individuals, our indigenous individuals in our communities, to help them learn their language, appreciate their cultures, not being ashamed of their cultures. There's a lot of different things that I think we can think of as indigenous populations that we need to be the authors of how we see this, whether you want to call it repudiation or you want to call it rescission. How do we fix the wrongs of the past, but make it better so that we don't feel ourselves as being always the victims, but we can right the wrongs of the past by being the authors of our future?
And Joni, the Healing Coalition wants more accountability from the church, some of that land back, but also access to church records and full support of a national investigation into Indian boarding schools. Churches, not only the Catholic Church, but other churches were part of the boarding school era.
Yeah, absolutely. I believe that the question that continues to remain with us is, what are the next steps for the Catholic Church to do to continue to seek forgiveness for this wrongful doing? Whether that's repatriation, whether that's giving us access to records, whether that's land back, returning land. The Catholic Church is the largest landowner in the world, 177 million acres, and yet we're still basing this 15th century edict, this law of doctrine of discovery, off of ongoing federal Indian law and policy that continues to set precedents. In 2005, there was a case that came up in the state of New York, Oneida Nation versus the city of Sherrill, and looking at how it, in the case, referenced first and foremost the doctrine of discovery. And, we continue to see that as climate justice warriors who are now addressing our lands that we can't properly care for. So in terms of National Native American Boarding School Healing Coalition and the ways that we've collaborated with the Department of Interior and Secretary Holland's office, I feel very hopeful that this continued call to action to address all of the continued impacts that we're seeing from children who were forcibly removed from their families. What does that look like for whole communities of people, whole nations of people, and what does that continued impact have on us? I believe that a lot of the not only abuse, the violence, the substance abuse that we see in our communities, it's all directly tied to this policy era of Indian boarding schools, which goes further to the overall initiative in claiming land and people. And this is not just, doctrine of discovery was just not about claiming lands as one's own and doing with it what one wanted to do, but it was genocide. It was the massacre of whole nations of people. And I want to hear the Vatican address that. I want to hear our archdiocese here in New Mexico address that, so that we can properly honor. And really, this is what that work is about. It's truth, justice, and healing. And it's about honoring those who never made it home. We don't know the location of where our children are buried at, all across this country, all across Turtle Island. And our First Nations relatives in Canada are still experiencing the same thing as well.
And Derek, what about the aspect Joni mentioned of healing? So what does it mean for reconciliation and healing? Why is it important to get not only that acknowledgement, but some next steps?
Well, because you don't want to live in the past, right? I mean, anybody that something bad happens to them, you want to be able to heal, learn from those experiences, and then move on. So when you talk about healing, at least from an indigenous population's perspective worldwide, right? What does that healing look like? Is it just saying, okay, brush it off, get over it, and move on? Unlikely. But what's the reality of saying, okay, land back, water back, move these people back onto their indigenous properties, and then let's move on as a society? That's highly unlikely as well, right? So when you talk about healing, it's got to be all around, whether it's talking about property rights, whether it's talking about mental and emotional and physical healing as a population, as an indigenous population. It's all across the board. That's why I can respect and I look forward to the discussions, if there are discussions to be had by whether it's the Archdiocese of Santa Fe in New Mexico, or it's by the Pope himself, to talk about these and have real discussions that aren't just simply repudiations and apologies, right? But they're talking more about, okay, we made a mistake in the past. We realize that, we recognize it, we are sorry for it. But in being sorry for it, this is how we will create, with your help and with your authorship and with your guidance and leadership, a change for the future for those that are small and those are yet to be born. And so that's how you create true healing in a society, to make sure that we don't see this again. Because if we don't address this in a very proper way, history has a way of repeating itself, right? And so we don't want to see this again in another so many years. And the way that society has grown up around us based on these principles, whether you're talking about the papal bulls or the doctrine of discovery, or you're talking about how states' rights, federal rights today treat tribes, it is still being impacted. And so how can we move forward to making sure then now the states understand this repudiation or their potential rescission of this? How does the federal government react to that as well, to make sure then that they can fix their policies around how they treat Native American individuals and Native American property and respect Native American sovereignty?
And Joni, from the Pueblo communities that you work with here in New Mexico and other tribes across the country, what is the next step? What do people want next?
Absolutely. I feel that in terms of advocacy at a national level, we need to work together and continue to push for our bill, which is at the Senate committee right now, being drafted, and soon it will be assigned a bill number. And in there, it will call for all of the records that churches maintain, so that we can continue to gather and build our database that should be released later this year. And within that, we'll be able to take a full accounting of all of our children and where they went to school, what schools they were trafficked between, what kinds of violence and experience that they suffered. A lot of the records that we've discovered at places like Carlisle Indian Industrial School, particularly in regard to Pueblo children, which is that I've heavily studied, demonstrate that malnutrition, but we also know about all the sexual abuse that occurred. Additionally, in looking toward building this database, there needs to be a call to action for reparations to fund this work so that we can continue to gather this. And that is really the goal at the National Native American Boarding School Healing Coalition. And if folks want to get involved in this work, they can absolutely go to our website, boardingschoolhealing.org.
Well, I want to thank you both so much for joining me today. Joni and Derek, thank you for being here.
Thanks
Thank you so much.